I'm going to read something to you today. Let's do this morning. I'm going to read something different. Paths to Recovery from Al-Anon. Step 1. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. So the first thing I'm going to do is talk about that. I'm going to keep stopping and talking here. So this video, this live broadcast is for people, family and friends of alcoholics and addicts who are currently suffering, right? So this is, if that's not you, if you don't have an alcoholic addict in your life, either a parent, a child, a niece, a nephew, a husband, a wife, and you don't give a rat's ass about that, you can scroll on by. But if you are suffering because your loved one is suffering, this is for you. So the first thing is, step 1, admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. You might say to me, I am not powerless over alcohol. I can drink, right? I can drink. This is the same step as in Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous, right? The fact that we are powerless over alcohol is a hard concept to take in. We are powerless over alcohol, actually alcoholism, whether it's in us or someone else. You're powerless how much someone's drinking. You're powerless over how they act when they drink. You're powerless if they black out. You are powerless over alcohol and alcoholism just as much as the alcoholic and addict. Now, this applies also to addicts. I believe that alcoholics and addicts are the same thing. They both suffer from the disease of alcoholism. And you may say, oh no, my son's a heroin addict. He doesn't drink at all. Doesn't matter. Suffering from alcoholism. The mental issue is alcoholism, right? It centers in the mind. Alcoholism. You can treat it with alcohol. You can treat it with heroin. You can treat it with meth. You can treat it with pot. Not everybody. Okay, back up now. If you smoke a joint now and again, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about people with alcoholism. You can treat it with shopping. You can treat it with gambling. You can treat it with sex. You can treat it with gaming. We see a lot of that with kids nowadays, right? You can treat it with, did I say porn? Porn. You can treat it a lot of ways. You're trying to treat this thing, right? What's going on up here. And so you stop the drinking. What happens if you don't change this? You start smoking pot, or you stop smoking pot. Whatever. And you start gambling, right? There's a sign for all of these. Gambling. You stop gambling and you start porn, right? So that's switching addictions. So the problem's the same, right? Alcoholism is a problem. So we admitted we were powerless over alcoholism, that our lives had become unmanageable. That is the first step. Do you know you're powerless over alcoholism? Do you know you're powerless over alcohol and drugs? Regardless of if you're taking it or someone else is taking it, think about that. That's what we're going to think about this morning. We're going to think about powerlessness. Really. Powerless over alcohol in your kids. Now you may think, well, no, they're my kids. You know, they're not going anywhere. I'll take their car. I'll take their keys. I'll take their laptop. I'll take their phone. No, you're powerless over alcohol. You're powerless over drugs, whether they're in your body or someone else's. That's a big concept. Okay, so I'll just read the first paragraph since we're doing this little morning event. Many of us came to Al-Anon filled with despair and hopelessness. Some of us come to find out how to get another person sober. Others grew up in alcoholic homes or left alcoholic partners and no longer live with active drinking. We may not see the impact of having lived with alcoholism until we begin to acknowledge that our familiar difficulties in our present lives and relationships. Many of us would not have voluntarily walked through the doors of Al-Anon if we were not in some sort of crisis or pain that forced us to seek help. Though we may not have labeled it this way, we come to Al-Anon because our lives are unmanageable. We come looking for relief. So your life's unmanageable. or you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't even be watching me, right? Something is not manageable for you in your life. And it's probably someone else's drinking or using, or some sort of addiction. So that's what I want you to think about today. All right? Just think about it. I'm going to come back tomorrow at the same time, and I'm going to read the next paragraph. And we're going to chunk this off one bite at a time. Okay? But I really want you to think about this. The word powerless and the word unmanageable. Okay? Mull that around a little bit while you're driving, whatever, cooking. Think about that. Powerlessness, unmanageability. All right? See you tomorrow.